All right. All right, welcome everybody to the August virtual meet of the San Diego Division, PSR-NMRA. And I'm glad you are all here. We're up to 34 people in the, all right, welcome everybody to the August virtual meet of the San Diego Division, PSR. Sorry about that. Learning how to do this. If you got feedback on that one, it's because I needed to close the live streaming window on my computer. All right, then. That just derailed my train of thought. Thank you for coming. Appreciate having you here. We're up to 34 participants, which is really nice, really encouraging. And I believe we have people from Arizona and Nevada and Los Angeles and Cajon Division and also San Diego Division and from places beyond. I really appreciate you guys coming and participating and supporting us. I really appreciate the comments that I've been getting in the RSVPs. A couple people now and then say how they appreciate us doing this and we're happy to do it. Just a few things for Zoom. I'm going to try to make it quick. Some of us are familiar with Zoom and some of us are new to Zoom. I muted all. You can unmute yourself, but I unmuted all to get rid of the background noise during the presenters. And what Zoom does, it'll move the screen around based on who's making a noise, so it just keeps the screen stable. But we'll have question and answer times and use the chat. You can find the chat at the bottom of your screen. You should be able to find a place to turn on the chat so you can see what people are saying. I don't know if I even turned on the chat in mine, but Mike is keeping a track of the chat and you can put questions in for the presenters. If you feel like you want to rename yourself so we know who you are and where you're from, if you haven't done that, that's nice to be able to see where people are from. And I think with no further ado, we're going to begin our program today. Show and tell. We have 30-minute segments. The first segment will be a lot shorter because I didn't get any show and tell volunteers. So I encourage you to go ahead and volunteer for a show and tell for next time. It can be easy. Don't have to put a lot of thought and effort into it. Just something you're working on to make an interesting thing for people to see. It doesn't even have to be interesting. It just has to be ball railroading. No, anyways, please volunteer and help us out with that. Our layout tour today is by Roger Redrig, MMR. He's going to do a layout tour of his railroad, Lodestone and Iron Railroad, and a little follow-up tour of the BSA modules that the division did a number of years back with Boy Scouts. And then we have a clinic by Dick Roberts, MMR, Easy Peasy Treasy. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to begin. I'm going to do the one show and tell. I have not done the show and tell before, and I actually have not done much in the way of clinics or anything like that. So here I go. All right, so I'm sharing my screen. I have some pictures, just in a picture viewer. I decided I didn't even want to make a PowerPoint, just keep it simple. I had enough things to think about getting ready for today. I'm not starting on the right picture. Here I am. Okay, so on my railroad, I have an elevator that moves my trains from one level to another. I have a double deck railroad. I do not have a helix nor space for it, but the elevator moves things up and down. That center shelf is how trains go from lower to upper. And the other 4 shelves are east and west staging. And when I laid the track on those shelves, I put 2 tracks and I included rerailers in there so that I could stage my trains easily. Atlas code 55 N scale. And on each shelf, I put 2 pairs. There's a better view, the side view. And what I discovered was that when I tried this when I staged my trains for an operating session, by the time I got the train halfway staged, I had no more rerailers available to me to help me put the trains on the track. I thought, well, I can do something about that. I can fix that. The thought of taking up track and cutting in more rerailers and the cost of more rerailers, if I added up the number I wanted, was more than I wanted to spend on this. So I thought, how can I make my own? So I'm sure people have done this, but I decided to give it a try. I got some styrene strip, I cut them to fit between the rails lengthwise so that the wheels could get through, and I chopped them up into lengths such as that, and I chopped some points on them and did some filing. All told, I made, I think it was 24 of them, and tried them out on the track. They seemed to work out okay. That's rerailers on the elevator. And then I even went, oh, well, that transition between the railroad and the elevator, it's working okay, but a little bit of insurance is a good thing. So I went ahead and made some for that gap. And all told, I made 24 of these and glued them on the track. And here is one set colored black. I think I just used a Sharpie and glued them down with canopy glue. So that's my share. All righty. I'll take questions and comments, but if there aren't any, Mike, where are we at, Mike?
I don't think we have any questions at this point.
Okay, that's cool. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and.
Oh, wait a minute. What do you do? What do you do about the gap between the elevator and the railroad? I'm not sure what that means.
Oh, okay. Well, when the elevator moves on a winch, I just use a motor, a drill motor on a winch to move the elevator. And I have markings on this outside of the elevator to show us which shelf we're at, and you just get as close as you can. And one of the other operators spots the elevator operator a little more, a little less, and the gap, it actually works. You saw the gap and the trains move over it. I just gave the railers for a little more stability, but it really only needs one end to be lined up properly at a time. So.
Oh, so I guess I didn't see that picture. So there's just very little space between the railroad track and the elevator track. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, less than the diameter of a wheel in end scale.
Okay. And how did you make your elevator work?
It's suspended by a cable that's hooked to a winch that I got from Harbor Freight, just a crank winch. So it's a worm gear, so it doesn't need a brake.
Is it motorized? No.
Only when I put a drill motor to it. Otherwise, it's a manual winch.
Okay. I have a question, but I'm not sure what it means. Is there any way to try to get T-Troop interested in the modules T-Track or N-Track?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Does the person who asked the question want to unmute and clarify the question? Okay. All right, probably we should move on. There's no other thoughts on that. So my thought with that is I didn't really put a lot of effort into that. I don't know if it showed or not, but anyone would like to.
Ryan?
Yes.
The questions look like they're interested in getting a Boy Scout troop involved in model railroading is the way I take it. And there has been a new rule come down from headquarters that we do not do anything with the Boy Scout troops at all. And we cannot be involved with Boy Scouting as NMRA because of all of the lawsuits that have been filed against the Boy Scouts. So the answer is we do not do anything anymore with Boy Scouts as NMRA, as official NMRA. If anybody wants to do it individually without being an NMRA person, just being a volunteer, they're more than welcome to. But the organization does not any longer work with Boy Scouts due to all of the ambulance chasing lawyers that will sue anybody that they can.
Yes, that was a new policy in the last 6-12 months, I think, for youth. So if you want more information about that, it's on the NMRA website, or contact Pete. He knows a lot about it. But let's go ahead and move on to our layout tour. So I'd like to introduce Roger Gredvig. Probably not saying your name right since I'm saying it in front of everybody else. I'm going to put you on spotlight, Roger, and give you the floor.
Hello?
Yes, you're on.
I'm on, right? Okay. Welcome. Opportunity here to do a layout tour. And do you want me just to share screen right now, Ryan? I can't hear you.
I muted myself, sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead, you have the floor. Share your screen and you're off.
okay. I'm going to share the screen now.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is okay, here we go. I think everybody can see this. Is that true? Okay. This is, I call mine the Lodestone and Iron Railroad. There's a reason for that, but I won't go into that right now. And as you can see on the screen, and it was also in the invitation to everybody, this piece right here, but I'll just repeat it. The following are some pictures they N-scale out, and some portions were built in the 70s, others in the 80s, and some as late as 96. It depicts a real railroad bridge route that was surveyed and incorporated, even funded, but it was never built, connecting the Rio Grande with the Santa Fe along the Colorado River from Grand Junction, California, Colorado, to my home in San Diego, California. And I've modeled a section that was from the low desert where California, Arizona meet, crossing the Colorado River, up to the high desert, Utah, thereabouts, and over the mountains into western Colorado. Obviously, it was never built, so I have lots of latitude in what I wanted to do and present. You'll notice at the bottom, it says some slides have references to magazine articles I've written, namely MR refers to Model Railroader, and NSM refers to N-Scale Magazine. I'm going to show you how it sits in the center of the garage, kind of freestanding in a sense, but it's really viewed only from two sides. And let me start off with some explanation. It's based off of an N-scale, N-track module right here, 2x4 N-track module. Back when Belmont Shores were beginning that concept of N-track, I was there and I built one of the first models, first N-track modules. And then later I would take that on vacations to Houston, to Phoenix, to Reno. And then later on, when I had room, I built this little 3x3 end and 4x4 other end, because I had enough room to do that, in order to take advantage of these bridge route on the N-track. So I could run all the way around and up. And I put a little right behind the N-track module, a passing sidings, so I could go, trains can keep coming more than one, and go all the way around and come up to the top and do a couple of loops around. Now remember, this is way back in the 70s, and the thing about going through the scene twice was not as big a deal as it is now. And all of this so I could go from the little port city right here and go all the way around up to the mines, all the mines that are up at the top. Later on, when my son and I built a garage, then I added this 4x8 area right here, and then divided it with a backdrop, so that the Lodestone, the city down here, could have a yard and all those things. And then at the other end of the layout would be Colorado, and have the Iron Mountain mine and all these other features up here at the top. You have to go all the way through the whole layout and several times to be able to get finally across here and into this the mountain area. So it gives a long run. And the mine right here connects with the smelter right here, literally just through the backdrop, but you got to go the whole layout to get there. Over here, I have some bridges. It's a way to connect the mountains back into this side. And this is mostly hidden track. And this is a vignette that you see. It really doesn't go with the rest, but this will be the last slide we'll see. And the first slide, some of the first will be the starting point of Lodestone. But before I go there, I'm going to go back to the N-track module. That was the very first thing built, as I said. And as you know, that you have the red, blue, and green lines. And then the green line is at the top, the other's at the bottom. And I used the one blue line to go off and around so I could do this crossover business, so I could do reverse loops and get my trains back and around. Remember, this is back in the early 70s. In this particular shot here, you can see this windmill. And as you see at the bottom, the N-track module with operating windmill. I did an article for Model Railroader in 1991 on how I got that to operate with vibration and not with a motor. All right, now going to where more or less we're starting. This is the Lodestone City and the yard. And I just wanted to point out that I say scratch built up here, but it's not totally scratch built. I used a top of a can and a offset funnel, put them together, and then made a casting of them so that this is plaster, and then assembled these with plastistruck and evergreen parts and pieces to make a coaling tower. Over here, I got this white portion of the mill from swap meet, and then I just added all of these, the pipes and piping and to make this. This is the overview of that area. So again, you can see the coaling tower, the mill. You can see the smelter back here. You can see the depot for both the bottom passenger trains and up here for the trolleys at the top. And all of these, the ladder, I made scratch-built turnouts, and I operate them with little pull bars and electrical switches down here for the yard. Now we're going to go back to the close-ups, or back to the side here. This is the auto overpass disguises the two-track main line as it emerges from the hidden area under Iron Mountain. So that's Iron Mountain is back that way, but you don't see that. You just deal with the front end of this, the layout and the yard. Going back to that depot, so here you can see the top portion that goes to the trolley line, the bottom section for the passenger trains. By the way, this is live wire. I made my own hot line, and it is hot, but it was so erratic with pantographs or trolley poles that I left the track two-sided DC to operate, so I got good current and not so much hesitation. And I say this is an article I did in 2000 for NMSN. But it's not truly scratch built in the sense that the windows and doors are old pieces I had left over. The rest of it is I made. Going to the next shot, again, here's a close-up of going from the passenger depot out here and all the trolley people up at the top, the rest of this, etc. And this is just to the right of it, as you already viewed, just from track level. I see a mixed train coast into town with an RS1 mixed deliveries. Again, this is more or less the same scene. I labeled mine Ellis and I, Lodestone and Iron, but I use the symbols you see on the edge of the cab of the Lake Superior and Ishpeming Railroad up in northern Minnesota, because those are the first cars I had. So I used those logos, and then I matched my name to match those logos. Going to the next one, again, more or less the same scene. I use Santa Fe because I'm connecting with Santa Fe and the Rio Grande. So those are the motor power I use. Rio Grande, Santa Fe, and my own, the LS&I. Here's the scene here with the smelter, and this is a loads in, loads out. So they always, empties are going out and the loads are always going in. And on the other side of the backdrop behind is the mine, but you have to do the whole layout to get there. Here's where I make the transition from Lodestone City to Port City, which is what I had for a long time before I built the section over here. And this is approaching Lodestone Yard from Port City. The lift bridge is animated. It's a power model power model, but I took the mechanism and I extended it to the fascia board so I could operate it from outside the layout. And also I installed a kid's toy that has a sound unit in it. And when you press the button, it says crank it up, and then you hear a whirling noise as we crank up the bridge. Here's another view of it. And again, I'm taking advantage of those LS&I decals. This is scratch built, although when I did it, it was not called scratch built because the siding is scribe siding. And at the time that was not allowed. But other than that, I've made it and formed it and did everything else. There you can see another view of it here. By the way, when that railroad was proposed, they were going to go to the Colorado River, go down to the Colorado River to the Gulf of Cortez, so they had access to Baja and out to the Pacific. But as you know, that never met fruition. You all know what happened to the Colorado River. So it just directly went off to San Diego was the alternate plan. This is scratch built. It was from HO plans. I took the plans and reduced them on the copier to N scale, and then just built it in N scale. And this is just a kit. Keep this in mind. This bridge right over here, this came very, very late. The last thing I did, I had to blow a hole in the scenery and everything to get it there, so I could get to staging. Staging, and I'll explain that later. Here's another view of looking from the other direction, that same bridge. So that this bridge here down in the left corner goes down from the module down to the N-track baseline behind the N-track module. And this one goes off to staging, which is a loop and staging tracks. Okay, going back to the N-track module on the front side, this is the other half of it. And again, lots of track. This is all really busy. Things they don't do nowadays, but back in the 70s, that was not a bad thing. These cross bucks right here are just plain old Bachmann dummies, and I punched them out, and the little jewels in them, and I put in LEDs and lit them, and they flash. There's sensors at both ends of the N-track module so that they'll start flashing when it goes over. I didn't mention that in the Lodestone yard. I did the same with the signals. I punched out the lights there, put in LEDs, sub-LEDs, and then used the ladder to disguise the leads as it went down into the ground, and those operate. Again, looking at this scene, a similar scene I used, and it was on the cover of N-Scale magazine back in March 1990. It's abandoned granary and feed store. This is scratch built in the sense that it's all board by board. The corrugated unit is just aluminum pressed on a homemade embedding form that I made. And the windows are all handmade. So that was one of the scratch built buildings for the MMR. And I did a little article on the haystacks here. This too is another scene on the N-track module. I built a scratch built animated horse head. In order to do it, this is only 3/4 of an inch high right here. And I had to put a pulley inside of this, kept coming apart with pieces I would make of a square. So I finally used a Lego block because it was solid enough and thick enough to put a pulley inside and to take the forces of the slow motion motor to make this all work. Okay, and here's some scratch built car wheel cars. Well, I'll explain that in a minute. But all of the rocks on the module, these are all made from molds I made from rocks in our yard and then cast them onto the layout. Going back to these are, I cut out metal pieces to the size I wanted. I put wood boards on each side, the bottom and the top, used full piping and drafting and everything underneath. And then I had to make the crosses, the angle bars here. There was no N scale that was that small or any product that was small for enough for N scale. So I took 5/1000 sheet and I cut it in strips, and then I made the strips and put them into angles and then cut the angles so they'd fit all of these places along the edge here. Also, the dreadnoughts on the ends of these cars are all handmade by tapering real thin dowel, and also made the polling pockets. Anyway, I took these to the Nationals in Seattle in 2004. You can see here at the bottom, and it won these won second and third prize at the Nationals. This is on the other that 3x3 foot section. I call it the Stonewall Mine and head frame. You're looking at the same thing. It's just two different pictures. At the time, I was trying to take pictures for the article, and I was trying different colors to see how the rock and other things came out. So from different angles. Anyway, I just put them together for a look. The article is about the head frame, and this one really works. It has a slow motion motor underneath, goes up and over the sheaves at the top, all the way across down here to the power station. If you could see a close-up, you would probably see the cables going. Here's another side view where the workers get into the shaft and into a cage, and which it goes up and down, as I said, automated. And here's the power plant. And it's just from here, it's just a dead weight, counterweight on the other side. And again, this is an article I did in January of '93 for Model Railroader. This is that same 3x3 sections, the far right side, if you're looking at from the front of the layout. This is just an old Hell-John trestle. I just took it apart so I could make it, instead of straight, make it a curve. And this one's a scratch built one behind it. And these are just Fowler pieces and Atlas pieces made into a bridge. This section here, the first one goes all the way around behind the N-track to the passing sidings and makes its way up to the top levels up here. And this makes its way back also to the N-track module. Okay, this is the same thing, except it's a vertical shot instead of a horizontal shot, so you can get more of it. Here's that mine way up there at the top, and then falls, kind of trickles down and comes down to the bottom. This is just a little scratch built milling. And again, this is that same milling one over here in the left corner. The big mine that we looked at earlier up at the top right. And this is a Craftsman Campbell kit here. And now we'll pretend ourselves we're in this train here going this way, because the rest of the trip we're going to go along this way and through the tunnels. Okay, we've come out that tunnel and we're heading over this track here. You'll notice here's the 3 tracks of the N-track module. Here's the top one up here for the green line, and this is the mid level for getting up. Traveling over here, it's really busy. Again, this is back in the late 70s. And we travel along here. I didn't need this track anymore to get up here once I had a destination in the mountains. So I just piled rock in here and put a wrecker, like it's trying to clean it out, but I don't use that track, just this one to get up to the top. You'll notice all of that was brownish colors of high desert sandstone. Most of the view is low desert to high desert. But from here now, we'll go across the bridge into the other module to the mountains. So the colors change. Anyway, this is that smelter on this side of the backdrop. So it crosses over to the gray color of the Colorado mountains. And there we pop out just below Iron Mountain City. Iron Mountain City, if you continue to the left, it'll go to the staging yard. This train here will make its way up and through the mountain and back up to this depot over here and the little town. Now here's a big view of that. So I just came out of that tunnel there. We'll head over here, circle the mountain, come out onto this bridge on the bottom right, and to get to this little town. And then the little town goes out here and goes on through the other layout to staging on the backside of the N-track module. So I could have a good full run and stage tracks. Over here is the Iron Mountain Mine. Again, loads in, loads out. You can see here they had trucks, the trains, the locos in front of a full, and then the caboose on the tailing end of this going in. And then the other side is the same way. It's always going the same direction. This always goes the same direction. This one is always going the same direction. And then let's see here. Okay, here's those bridges you saw slightly in the other one. The trains circle around the mountain and they work their way up to here to get to Iron Mountain City, or they can turn and go to this line here, which drops below to that mine that you saw, or they can return already and take this one and go right back through that tunnel that we saw earlier. Now next view will be over here on the other side of this bridge. On this side of the bridge, I've got an animated log carriage, a saw blade, and log moving down the spar pole. In other words, the carriage goes back and forth here with the log. There's a blade that turns around, and on the spar pole, there's a line that goes up out of the side here, and a log goes back and forth, up and down in slow motion. Those are 3 different motors that operate those. Next side, this is at the other end of this same side is the mine. This I based off of a O-scale pictures I saw of a gold mine, so it's based on that. This is all board by board construction. Again, the corrugated roof is aluminum foil that I embedded on a little jig I made to emboss it, and then colored it in etching fluid to weather it all, and then made it interior. By the way, this did not pass for the NMRA scratch built category. It was kit bashed is the way they looked at it, because it has Grant line windows and doors. Back then, it had to be completely scratch built. Today, it only requires 90%. So this would pass as scratch built today's standards. So here's the insides of it. So there's a scratch built 5 stamp mill, 3 of those, the Whiffley shaker tables, and the lower amalgamation tables in this section. This is removable, so I could mess with lights and other things. Again, here's the stamp mills in the background. I used wire and sub-miniature beads for the stamps. And then I used HO sheaths in one case and HO wagon carts for those that are below here. The power cables for all of this coming down and around and is a ribbon I shaved down to 1/16 of an inch and then sized it with glue so that they would dry and be tight and taut, because it's tough to do that in N scale. And again, you see N scale figures here in the amalgamation tables and the Whiffley tables. And this is that vignette I said that's over in the corner. This all is in the mountain section. And these are coming out of hidden staging that's circled around. And if you see at the bottom here, it says this is Grant's Gorge. The upper deck bridge is a spur to Iron Mountain, and the lower two bridges are the return back to Lodestone to if I want to use that shortcut. Anyway, hope you enjoyed your visit to the Lodestone and Iron Railroad. Any questions? Back to the leader.
Hey, Roger, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So the LS&I, is that like based a little bit on the Lake Superior and Ishpeming?
Well, the name was I traded my HO and got N scale when it first came out in the early 60s, well, middle 60s. And I changed the ore cars that they came out with were
Right.
Lake Superior and Ishpeming Railroad. And so I wanted to use those, but I wanted a Western railroad. So I just invented LS&I, which is on their decals.
Right.
Call it the Lodestone and Iron.
Okay, cool. And the logos were painted kind of a Northwestern scheme.
Yeah, those that were Northwestern, I decided, that looks okay. All I have to do is this, that, and the other thing. So I just removed Northwestern from everything and used my own dry transfers or decals.
Nice. Very nice layout. I like that a lot.
I have a comment, if you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear.
All right, this is Don Best. I used to run in my younger days river trips to the Grand Canyon for tourists. And Frank Brown, I think, was the guy that was a Denver businessman that commissioned Stanton to survey that route.
Yes.
And in the story we always told, I don't know if it's true, is that what he really wanted to do was bring coal from Colorado into Southern California.
Correct.
But before it ever got built, they discovered oil in Southern California.
Yep.
So the market went away. So people that love the Grand Canyon think it's a great idea that the railroad never got built. People that love railroads think it's a terrible idea because it would have been the greatest railroad ever built.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm in the middle.
Yeah. Well, then for those of you who are interested, the article is in the NMRA bulletin from April of 1983 and explains that whole trip he made down the railroad to survey it, the money he got, right, funded it and everything, but just never made that connection between the Rio Grande and the Santa Fe. And also because it was very difficult. And the other part is they didn't really want connections back there from those railroads. They wanted dominance. But it made me have a bridge route, which I could not have a lot of restrictions.
Hey, Roger, we have a question. Did you scratch build the stamp machines?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. You have a lot of incredible scratch built buildings, trestles, bridges. I mean, it's an amazing layout.
Yeah, most of the bridges, though, were kits that you saw going across the N-track module. Those are just standard kits. And but actually, for a tiny layout, it has 34 bridges.
Wow. And then, so you can disassemble your entire layout and move it if you need to because it's made in modules. Is that correct?
In fact, yes, and I've had to do that a couple of times when I moved. I had each of those segments hanging in my parents' garage from their rafters while I had a new house built.
Very nice. Are there any other questions from anybody? Do you want to either type in the chat or unmute your microphone at the bottom left-hand corner for Roger?
What did you use for water? What was your technique?
Mostly Envirotex. All that in at the port city is mostly. There's a couple of places where I just used gel and Mod Podge and that kind of thing, but mostly Envirotex.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, Roger, can I ask one last question?
Yeah, sure.
Do you do operations on your railroad, and how long does that last usually?
It is set up to do card operations, and all around the outside of it are cards in different places. And I did that when I began because that was a big deal. And also for the dispatcher's AP certificate, I needed to do all of those things. But in reality, I discovered I don't like operations. I just like to watch trains run. So I don't operate.
Okay, thank you.
Roger, this is Gene. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Roger, I'm curious about your locomotives. Do you run them long hood forward? And are you DC, DCC?
This is all DC. Although I do have a infrared cab so that there's a power unit I put up in the rafters. And so I can walk around detached, to run the railroad, but it's being run off of DC. So I do have to flip switches and other kinds of mechanical things to do.
Thank you.
Roger, did you still want to do your other presentation?
Yeah, we can do that. I can run through that real quickly.
Okay. It's yours.
Okay, let me figure out how to reduce this. Okay. Whoop, where'd I go? Okay, can everybody see that?
No.
Okay, okay. Screen sharing is done.
I think you need to share the screen, Roger.
Okay, I need to do that again. Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Getting somewhere.
Yeah. Didn't do it. Let's see what happened. Maybe it's loading. I just asked it to show the slides. Has everybody just seen?
Yeah, we've got the grid of slides.
Got the grid of slides. Okay.
Roger, hit the little box that says resume.
The resume, and where's that at?
Slide.
It's over your first slide. It shows us.
Oh, is that open?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, there I see it. Okay.
Bingo.
All right. You heard the caveat earlier, but
Collect the money.
pardon?
Nothing.
I said you heard the caveat by Pete earlier, and that the NMRA does not sponsor or encourage participation or publication of the BSA, but this was done a couple of years ago, and I'm doing this not to promote Boy Scouts, but just to say how we could get back into doing things for youth, and a method that's possible. In this particular case, this troop came out and they ran the layout, although the layouts were built more than 20 years ago by Boy Scouts. But 2 years ago, this troop here went and operated them for us at our convention. anyway, what I wanted to share is that these were all built in 3 Sunday afternoons. You know, after the table was made and ready, the laying of the track, the building of the mountains, the bridges, everything that you see was done in 3 Sunday afternoons. And I'll talk about that a little later. Just some scenes, just plain old, some of the scouts just put together the bridges. Others were working on a little kit or whatever it happened to be. And like I say, these are, if we want to introduce kids to trains, if we have them build something that they really like, here's the explanation. So adults built this so that they could put in the 110 and all that business. And this wasn't a woodworking project. It was a merit badge for railroading merit badge. So the kids put in the track. They did everything after that. They used styrofoam. You can read over in the corner here, just broken pieces of styrofoam, stacked them with bamboo skewers and toothpicks, then mixed up a whole big batch of plaster, and with their hands and plastic gloves, they just slathered it on there. Then they took plastic knives and cut, horizontal striations all over the place. And then after that, started to set up a little bit. Then they all got spray bottles and color brushes and just put on from lighter colors to darker, mostly all those earth colors, burnt umber and etc. And then that was followed by a sprinkling of gravel and sawdust and wet glue. So each of those took about 3 weeks for them to dry for each of the stages. And the end modules here are a little different than a standard end track because it had to turn around and go behind the layout for this continuous run. And so these are 3 by 3 rather than the 2 by 4. But these can connect with a whole club or whatever. In fact, they did for the Vista Club, because as you see down here, they continue on. The blue track, all the rest of them at each end. And this is that time that they met. So the whole footprint is 3 by 14 foot. And again, this is the specialized 3 by 3 foot section. So you could get around running the blue line and the green line, and they run in opposite directions. And then the little head frame there that has a piece that goes back up and down. And they emblazoned their name here. Can't quite see it in this photo, but 685 was the troop that worked on this portion, and then a waterfall. And like again, scenery were completed in 3 Sunday afternoons. And then on each of the modules is the troops who participated, and then their names underneath. So you can see these are all kit for the most part. In this particular case, somebody just mentioned the Colorado River. This Troop 278 would build their own kayaks out of plywood and canvas and would paddle down the Colorado River 2 or 3 times a year. My son was part of that. And so they wanted to depict those their activities here. So they have on each of the modules camping trips or the kayaking trips. And then they built the little kit boats. And here's another long shot here. This end module here, closest to us, is a pyroclastic flow like Mount St. Helens blowing up. So it's got the forest is blackened, the trees are down, there's stumps left, and then the clouds up above are just filter floss from an aquarium supply, and the color black, and there's there's lightning and thunder and sound effects that come from that. We'll show you that in a second. So on the back side, the upper green line goes in one direction, and this one operates that in one direction. There's staging here so they can switch out trains at the top. Blue line, same thing down here below. It goes in the opposite direction, and they can change out trains. Here's the blue line at the other end of it. And the blue line goes in the clockwise, the other counter. And here's where it switches around. Here's the little slow motion motor that operates the head frame. And by the way, that head frame is just bridge parts HO and N scale, and just cobbled together things as long as it worked. And it was easy for the scouts to put together. And then that's a Lego block that is filled with little lead beads. So it would have weight enough to go up and down as the slow motion motor operated. And then there's a weight underneath to provide tension on that cable. And again, here's that sound. This is a salvaged Halloween and lightning and thunder device, for at the front door. Instead, we use it over here with the light flashes and the sound lightning thunders. The little sign here says to the operators, don't keep pressing the button. It disturbs all the rest of the people in the hall. So it's just to show an individual if they ask. And again, this is that pyroclastic flow. There's lights behind. This is just a wrapping paper that's clear, silvery, and there are lights behind here, so it glows like lava is flowing. Little amusement here. The kids did all the castings, poured the castings for retaining walls and other kinds of things of that sort. And then, like I say, they did all the wiring, the soldering, the connections, the ballasting, everything else, everything you see. And I said that they assembled all the commercial bridges and boats, and even a scratch built trestle. This particular one is scratch built by one of the scouts. He took it home, and during the week, he put it together and then brought it back so we could install it the next Sunday. And there's those ore cars. These were painted over, but those are those LS&I mining cars that I had from the 60s. And here's the trains running in the different directions. So not to endorse Boy Scouts, but just saying this is an event we had, but if we use that kind of idea, building N-track module as a project to attract youth for ourselves, there certainly would be one way to do it. There's also a video of a short video of this thing running, and it'll be posted on the YouTube after this whole day is done. So tomorrow or sometime, if you want to see it in moving, you can watch it there. All right, any questions anybody has? We're back to Ryan. Are you?
All right, I'm here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roger, very much. Excellent.
Okay. Anybody have questions?
I don't see any questions, but I think that's a really interesting way to, you have your scenery in the front and then all your controls in the back. So it's all set up for a convention or some kind of fair or event. I think that's fantastic. I've never seen that. I'm new to all this, but I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, these were for a long time. These were up at the Vista Short Track Club. They kept them for many years, and they would use it every year at the Del Mar Fair and put a part of their bigger layout.
Oh, with the Del Mar Fair, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Roger. We'll move on to the next part of our program. Let me see here. All right. Sorry, I'm distracting myself.
Okay.
All right, there we go. All right, so next step on our program for this afternoon is Dick Roberts, and he's going to be presenting his tree clinic. Are you ready, Dick? You are muted.
Hey, Dick, you need, oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, no, I got out of sequence here, so.
No problem.
Okay, let me open the file, and then I guess I need to share screen first. There we go. Are we good?
We are good.
Okay.
We see it. It looks good.
All right. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This clinic is about making bottle brush method trees, evergreen trees. This is a picture of my layout with a lot of trees. I'm not a tree expert, but I do have a lot of experience making trees, and I'm going to share some of my techniques and my thoughts on that as we go along. The bottle brush method is just what it sounds like. I need to make a change. I need to get these. You had your pictures right on top of my notes here. Anyway, so what we're going to cover today is the method, the materials you need to gather, tools and special stuff to make, and we're going to look at making a tree and planting a tree. And these are a couple of close-up examples of the layout, trees that are on my layout. They're typically evergreen. We're going to look at how to make the basic tree and how to do a trunk and some dead branches on the trunk. So just some basic information. I model in HO scale, and pine trees in general are anywhere from 70 to 100 feet. So that's 8 to 16 inches in HO scale. Trunk is anywhere from 3 to 8 feet. So that's 3/8 to 1 inch. I use a conifer green ground foam for the flocking. And the trees, as trees get older and they grow taller, they have more exposed trunk. And so that's one of the things I try to feature on the layout where I can. The process is relatively straightforward. We're going to use sisal twine. So we're going to cut some twine. The twine is wrapped in a piece of wire. The wire is held in a fixture and then it's twisted. And I'm going to go through all those steps for you. This is a list of the materials, and I think this PowerPoint's going to be available on our website when we're finished here. So all these things will be available for your information. Anyway, we're going to have some twine. We need florist wire or some other kind of wire. We're going to have spray paint, hairspray that we use for adhesive. The Woodland Saints ground foam. You can do some additional ground foam, the fine type, for highlighting the trees. You need a catch pan and some gloves. These are some of the tools I use for doing the twisting. I use what's called an aircraft safety wire plier. They're also referred to as wire twisting pliers. And all these tools are available on Amazon. Need a hemostat about 6 inches long, file cleaning brush, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Diagonal cutters, a 4-sided rasp. In case you don't have one handy, we're going to use that for making the trunk. And some scissors for trimming, and don't steal your spouse's good scissors. Get some of your own. As an option, we're going to look at, or as an option, you can use a power drill with a cup hook and the chuck for doing the twisting. So this is sisal twine. This is a spool that I've had, I don't know how many years. It's 2,250 feet, and it's still about $20 on Amazon. That makes the twine about 0.8 cents per foot. We use about 3 feet of twine per tree. So that's about 2.4 cents per tree. And I haven't done 750 trees yet, so I have a lot of twine left. But I wanted to point out a couple of things here. Some YouTube sites, you can go on YouTube and find all sorts of tree making methods. And a lot of them suggest using sisal rope. Rope is just multiple layers of twine. So if you're going to use a rope, you have to unravel it all to get down to the small sizes. So if you start with twine, you're just saving yourself the time of unwrapping all the rope. So This is a florist wire. When I first started making trees, I was using wire, just spooled wire from the hardware store. And then one day I discovered florist wire, and I looked on Amazon, and sure enough, they had it. And they have it in various lengths. I use 18-inch because that's a good size for working with these trees. This is what it looks like in the bundle. They still sell a package of 400 pieces for $10, and it's pre-cut and it's painted green. It's just perfect for what we're doing. That makes it about 2 cents a wire. So now the cost of this tree is up to 4.5 cents. Now you can buy wire in a spool. This is how I started out years ago. And you can cut this wire to any length you want. That has advantages if you're trying to make longer trees, taller trees. And you may also need longer wire if you're going to use the drill and cup hook to twist it. This is what an aircraft safety wire plier looks like. I have to apologize. I did several videos to demonstrate some of the items in this clinic. And it turns out that Zoom doesn't like videos very well, so none of the videos are going to run, if they run at all. So I tried to replace them with still shots. But anyway, this is the safety wire plier. It has a locking mechanism right here. It goes when you squeeze the handles. This comes together. This is a sliding latch. So when you lock that down, it clamps the head of the pliers. The jaws will clamp down on the wire. And this is spring loaded, so when you squeeze the handles together again, this will pop open. But when it's closed down and these jaws are locked down, pulling on this knob back here, there's a spiral screw in it. So when you pull on the knob, it causes the pliers to twist. And this is supposed to be, we'll see if the video is going to run or not. So, okay, so the videos don't work. Moving right along. Oh, maybe they will. Anyway, you can see the details on the handle here. So, and this is, if you decide to use a drill and a cup hook, this is basically what you will use. You need to make sure you have a good a chuck that'll hold the cup, because you're going to be pulling on the wire as you twist it, and you don't want it to pull out of the drill or off the hook. So the key to my process is a fixture that I use to hold the twine in place. I've looked at several methods that people use for making bottle brush trees, and none of them that I have seen have solved the problem of holding the twine very effectively. So the key to that is this thing called the file card. And this is, again, this is available on Amazon. It's about $5 or so. We're going to cut this thing in 2 pieces. And then we're going to mount it on this fixture. Now I want to talk about this fixture for a minute, because this is a big deal. This is the thing that makes the tree making process relatively easy. However, this is the jig that I built years and years ago, and it's got a groove created by these 2 boards here. I just assembled this with hot glue, but since I've been using pre-cut wire, I've discovered that the groove is really not necessary. There's a nail down here that pivots, and there's one at the top that'll pivot, and we'll get a closer look at that. And okay, the videos keep trying. Anyway, this is the top of the jig, and this nail will pivot and up against this nail stop, and the wire comes through the groove, and then the twine is pressed down into the teeth of the file card, and this is what it does. It holds all that twine in place while we're twisting it. I came up with a method that I thought worked well for getting twine, because you're going to need a bunch of it. So I took a 3/4 inch dowel, I cut a groove in it, And I wrap the twine around the dowel. And it mounts in the drill. It's got whittled down so it fits inside the drill chuck here. So we remove it from the drill and I run a knife down that groove. And okay, our video is not going to run again. Anyway, I run a knife down the groove and it cuts all the twine, and this will produce about 50 pieces of twine at 2 3/4 inches. An alternate method, I haven't used it personally, but I have, is to use your chopper. This is a quick modification you can make. This is the guide for the chopper, and it's on a piece of sheet styrene and a styrene tube. And you can make the tube big enough to allow 4 or 5 strands of twine to go through there and then chop them. And this is about the right length out here somewhere. But whatever method you use for chopping the twine, we need a lot of it. This is the fixture in place. And the first thing I want to point out right here is that this is clamped to the workbench. You don't want this thing floating around because you're going to be pulling on it when you get the pliers connected to it. And again, the video is not going to run, so I'll explain what we're doing here. This is the twine as it's cut. And you take each piece of twine and twist the ends to unravel it so it gets bushy like this. You stick the unraveled end down into the file card. And this wire you can see is already in the groove, and you want to position it so that it's evenly spaced, so that when you fold this wire over this nail, the ends will come together down here. Okay, there's the twisting part. Okay, I guess some of the videos will run and some of them aren't, so we'll see how far this one goes before it dies. Okay, so you bend the wire over the nail, bring the ends together, and this is a twisting plier. Now, if you stop for a second right here, oops, just can't do that. Anyway, at this point, if you wanted to use the cup hook method, you would just wrap these wires around the cup hook. But as you pull and start twisting this, you want to lift up it up off of the file card so that the bristles, the twine won't tangle. And when it's all done, you get a nice twisted basic tree form. And there's a loop that's formed on the top with where the wire's doubled over, and we just cut that loop off. And the next thing is shaping the tree. And this is, I do this with scissors. I'd like to start at the top and work my way down. And I think we missed a slide here. Yeah, start at the top and work my way down. I do this over the garbage can because it makes it real easy to see the fine edges of the tree as you're cutting it down. This is getting close to the finish here. And there's a finished tree trimmed and ready for the paint shop. And this is multiple trees, and we're looking at the beginning of a forest here. So I use Rust-Oleum camouflage paint. I like it because it dries quickly. The first color that and these are the camouflage colors. The first color that I'm using here is Earth Brown. It's their number 1918. And we're gonna spray this from the bottom up. The objective here is to get the center of this thing as dark as possible and the underside so it has more of a shadow effect. So this is applying the second color. And again, I apologize for the video's not working good. Anyway, this is the second color I use is deep forest green. You could probably use that as your base color because it's really dark as well. The next step after you've painted it is we're going to flock the tree. This is another tree that I made using gray primer for the base color, which is a good, the dark grays are a good base color for the trees that we're making. So this is obviously fairly cheap hairspray, but it's a good spray adhesive. So that's what we're going to use it for. We're going to put a nice heavy coat onto our tree, which we can't see. There we go. The next thing, working under a catch pan so you can catch all the leftover residue, is we're going to flock. This has got wet adhesive on it now, so we're going to flock this tree. And you can just keep shaking it on. Knock off the loose stuff, and when you're done, if it didn't fill in, you can spray it again and reflock it. So now you end up, ultimately, you'll have a bunch of trees. This is what I call a tree palette. And when I'm doing work on the layout, I like to have a couple dozen trees made up and forest a little area real quickly. From now on, we're going to handle these trees using the hemostats. If you try to pick these up with your fingers, you'll just end up messing up the foliage and everything. So the hemostat, when you grab it right into the middle, and you can work through the bristles here without disturbing anything, and gives a good handle for the tree as we finish the work here. So for trees that don't have trunks, we're now ready to plant it. I use an awl, poke a hole in the scenery. And I'll tell you from experience that as soon as you pull the awl out of that hole, you'll lose it. It disappears. So what I do is I put a toothpick in as a place marker. And once you're ready to plant the tree, you want to cut the stem down to about a ½ an inch or so. And this is our toothpick. We pull the toothpick out, put the tree in. And we're good to go. Okay, now, again, all the trees don't require trunks, but we're going to do two things. We're going to make a trunk, and that's good enough for a lot of trees. And then we're going to do some dead branches on some of them that'll be more prominent. So the process is we're going to start with a piece of square balsa wood. We're going to use the rasp to round it. We're going to paint it, and then we're going to drill some mounting holes and put in a mounting pin and some tree limbs. And this is a 4-sided rasp. You're probably familiar with it. If not, again, it's available from Amazon for about $5 or $6. This is, it's got a flat side that's smooth or fine and coarse, and then it's got this rounded side that's also fine and coarse. And I like to use the rounded coarse side to get texture on the trunk. So we start out, this is a square end of the balsa wood, and the reason I use balsa wood is because it's much easier to work than a dowel. You can get grain into it real easy, and we're going to poke holes in it for the tree limbs, and it's much easier to poke holes than it is to drill them. So the rasp now is going to we're going to round it off and take the sharp corners down. You're going to end up with something that looks like this, kind of fuzzy at first, and then we're going to sand it. This is a 60 grit sandpaper. It gives us a much smoother finish, but this is the texture that you'll get when this is painted. And this is a hole for the squirrels. If you have any model squirrels, you can put them there. The colors I use for the trunk, for painting the trunk, are burnt sienna and raw sienna. The one from the previous slide is a burnt sienna color. Since the stick is about 3 feet long, 36 inches, I cut them into random lengths of 4 to 6 inches using my handy dandy bandsaw. And the next thing is to drill mounting holes. You want to drill this is a toothpick size drill because I use round toothpicks for the mounting pins. But you need to drill both ends because we're going to put a mounting pin and one on the bottom, and the tree is going to plug into the top. I also bevel some of the trunks. In fact, I keep them separated so that I know, but this is beveled because where the scenery slopes, it's much easier to mount these and glue them in place when they're beveled. So depending on the shape of the scenery I'm working on, I'll use beveled ones or flat ones. So adding the mounting pin is relatively straightforward. We're going to take a toothpick, dip it in the white glue, stick it into the hole in the bottom. And when we're done, we're going to have a trunk pallet. So we have a variety of trunks here. Notice that they've all got a hole drilled in the top. Now we're going to add some dead branches using caspia. This is the effect that we're looking for here. Caspia is a dried flower. You can also use baby's breath. It's about the same thing. It's sold in craft stores in bunches. So this is like one stalk out of maybe 10 or 12. But what we want to do is cut it into small, paint it dark while it's still on the stalk. Dark gray or dark brown, the trunk color, or whatever suits your eye. And then we're going to cut them into little pieces and use them for the dead trunks, dead branches rather. So we add dead branches. Again, this is why I like to use a balsa wood. I can just poke these holes. 4 to 5 holes on the trunk will usually suffice. And any holes that you don't get filled become squirrel holes. So the squirrels have to have some place to live. So we add the dead branches. We take a piece of the caspia, dip it in the white glue, using tweezers, stick it into the hole, work your way around the trunk until you have, and it'll dry clear. This is all fairly fresh. So this is the look of the dead limbs. Now, when we're ready to assemble the tree, we're going to put the tree into the trunk. Again, we want to trim that stem down to about a ½ inch. And grab with the hemostats, grab the inside of the stem. We're going to set that aside just for a moment. We're going to take the trunk upside down, dip it into the white glue, then dip it into the foliage. This is the same stuff you used for flocking the tree, whatever color that is. And with the hemostats, you can't see them here, but you hold the tree and push the trunk onto the tree, and then you have a finished tree. This is the extra flock that was added with the glue. And one of the things when you're planting full trees is you want to do the forest floor first. And this, again, this is where it's important to keep track of the holes by putting toothpicks in them. So if you poke a hole and you're laying out a pattern for the trees or whatever, you poke a hole, you put a toothpick in it so you don't lose the hole, and then you can plant all the trees you got. And that's the end.
Okay, that was great. Hey, Dick, there's a couple questions. Whenever you cut that file card, do you use a hacksaw or what do you use?
I probably cut it on my bandsaw. Knowing me, I don't, that thing's probably 20 years old. So who knows how I could, but you could use a hacksaw. You could use it because it's got metal teeth in it. A hacksaw would probably be a good idea. But if you got access to a bandsaw is real quick. So.
And there was a question about how big are squirrels holes, or how big
are squirrel holes? How big is the squirrel?
Yeah, how big is a squirrel in HO scale? Okay, let's see.
Okay, yeah, a little humor goes a long way with this group. So.
But
Yeah.
That's amazing. So how many trees do you do at a time?
I usually do a couple dozen when I'm working. What I like to do, because I'll do different colors and things, and so I'll do them in bunches, and some of them I'll pretend like they're yellow pines, and some of them are Douglas fir, and you plant them in different areas so that you get more of the Sierra Mountain effect. There's I usually, when I do this clinic in person, I have a page that I hand out that shows for the Sierra Nevada, the range of trees and plants and shrubs and things that are in various elevations. So you can define the elevation of your railroad based upon the scenery, the plants and trees that are growing.
So now I have a question
Anyway.
about making trees. So say if you're making, how trees are really, they have different color leaves, and even though they're all green, but they're different shades of green. Do you, when you first put your foliage on, can you spray it again with the hairspray and then put on a different foliage and kind of?
Yep. One of the things I didn't think, I tried to do a video and it didn't come out, but you can I have a little salt shaker that I have full of yellow woodland scenics, yellow, and I sprinkle that around to give a sunlight highlight to the tree. Just sprinkle it down from the top. Now you can do the same thing with lighter colored greens. It has the same effect. It makes it look like there's more sunlight. So.
Okay, are there any other questions? Anybody want to unmute, or anybody want to type anything? Any questions?
Okay, who's 6 divided by 87? So that's probably something that's about 7/1000 of an inch in diameter. So if you can make a squirrel in HO scale, you let me know. I'll put some in my trees.
So, and then whenever you make trees, are you saying this is a good time to drink beer at the same time, or?
No, not me. That was Tim that said that.
Okay.
Tim's always a problem. What are you going to do?
Okay, how do I get out of here now?
Oh, you're stuck. You're finishing it. All right. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up.
There we go. Okay.
All right.
Yay.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Roger, very much. And thank you, everybody, for coming. We had a late arrival. Who just came in? Bob from Florida. Welcome. You're just in time for us to finish.
He's in the wrong time zone.
Yes, that's what happened. Bob was in the San Diego division. How long has it been, Bob? Can you move?
Thank you, Ryan. I just didn't get the email for coming in. Luckily, I just called Peter and brought me in right now. So thanks for having me again. And I'll pay my dues if you must, okay?
I need to check and see if you're on our email list, and I'll put you on it. All right. I just want to wrap up then with a couple of things. I want to encourage you again to keep coming. We're going to do this every second Saturday of the month. And you can see what we're thinking about for the following month once we've thought of it by looking at our website. So visit our website, sandiegodivision.org. I want to remind about our San Diego Facebook group. You can find us on Facebook and ask to join. It's a private group where we can interact. And
the links, if you don't mind me saying, the link to our Facebook group is on the homepage of our website at the bottom of the website.
very good. Yes, those links are there. And the recording of this event is on YouTube. I noticed that last time we had quite a number of people on YouTube watching, and I see we only have 2 today, and I know one of them is me on the other computer. So, but I didn't publicize the link because I wasn't sure if it was going to work this time or not. So, but you can see the recording of this event or share it with somebody else who didn't get to come. It's on our YouTube channel. Maybe Mike, you can put a link to our YouTube channel in the chat because I don't think I can grab it at the moment.
Also, I don't know if there's a link to the YouTube channel on the website, on the San Diego website. That would be good.
That would be good too. If there's not one there, Michael put one. And that's all I've got, unless anyone else has anything. I'm going to wrap us up and
Ryan,
stream.
I'm sorry. What the second Saturday of the month at what time? 1 o'clock your time?